Was this game more about Real Madrid for you then than Man City? And do you feel Man City were slightly underperforming or slightly overcautious in it?
I'm not sure about overcautious. I just think Madrid defended well. So City's, the first 25 minutes, say, City were completely dominant. But it was a slightly anodyne dominance in that Madrid, you always felt had them at arm's length. There was that, Haaland underhit a shot, and then there was that Rodri effort.
Proved more dangerous than earlier on the night.
There was that Rodri shot from range, but generally City's best play, I think you would have to say you would struggle to name a City attacker that played really, really well. Even De Bruyne, aside from the goal. I thought City's best player for the first bit and probably overall was probably John Stones, maybe Rodri. I thought their kind of combination play in deep areas was fantastic. But again, Madrid were keeping them largely outside the box. So I wouldn't say it was caution from City. I just don't think they quite unlocked the Madrid defence in the way that they would have liked. Credit to Madrid for that, I guess.
And that's why essentially City didn't make a substitution. Was maybe it didn't look like they were going to get a second, but it didn't look like they were going to concede a second. Perhaps like a landlocked country, he's heard of subs, but he doesn't necessarily need them.
Nice. That would be your opening to your match.
Yeah.
I mean, De Bruyne was interesting because he sort of needed. I mean, obviously he's at an already incredibly elevated level, but I think part of the reason he's not generally in the kind of Ballon d'Or conversations is because when it comes to these big Champions League knockout ties, he doesn't influence games. And you look at someone like Modric, who just grabs games, dominates them. Even Vinicius Jr. is so decisive in these big matches. And after about an hour, my brother was saying to me, it's like, is De Bruyne a bit symptomatic of City in the sense that absolutely dominant in the Premier League, but when it comes to these massive Champions League nights, do they impose themselves in quite the same way? And obviously then 7 minutes later, he scored that absolutely brilliant goal. But I think he does, that's what he needs to do if he is to get in that conversation of the really, really elite players, best players in the world.
They were tiring though, weren't they, the City, towards the end? And it is singular when you had players like Foden and all the rest of them on the bench that Pep didn't think, and clearly he had his reasons because he's Pep.
But I guess the most obvious change would have been maybe bringing on Foden for Grealish. But Grealish was another player I thought played really well, created 6 chances from open play, which is impressive at the Bernabeu. But just that control he had a couple of misplaced passes in the first half and almost did a Gaza-style injury in the first minute when he tackled. But I thought his improvement this season, and that game was kind of the symbolic of that really. He was just that outball all the time. He's just, I can see why Guardiola would not want to take that away with the last 10 minutes.
You do see teams sometimes making subs almost for the sake of it feels, when they bring on players you're like, but they're kind of worse. And I get, fresh legs, as we were told, it was a very warm night. But this is something he does fairly often, and it does tend to work for them.
Yeah, Michael said no obvious man of the match, but I think Camavinga would have got my
had he not
selection.
Basically played Man City in for their equaliser.
Well, we all make mistakes. But I thought he was great. And the thing with him, I hope he likes playing at left back because he was so good there, and they don't really have anyone else. And if Madrid sign Bellingham this summer, that could be his.
How does that work? Because everyone seems to think that's where it's heading. And so you've got him. How would that front three currently work with Bellingham in there?
Front three.
Oh, Real Madrid, with Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr. and Benzema. Am I misunderstanding entirely where Bellingham would fit into that?
Probably, I think the front three would stay the same.
And he would be, instead of...
one of 3 midfielders, I guess.
Okay.
I suppose, on current form.
Ahead of Kroos?
Yeah, I mean, Kroos feels like he's on the way out. I mean, there's Tchouaméni as well, who now can't get a game.
Also had a really hard shot in this game.
Yeah, and against England. Mm-hmm.
Whose shot was hardest in this game, Duncan? Is there any data on that?
No data, so it's all vibes. But I mean,
I'd say De Bruyne.
Yeah,
do you feel?
Felt harder.
I think he properly leathered that.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that. That sort of battle on the flanks between Carvajal and Grealish, and then Walker and Vinicius Jr.
Yeah.
That's when I think the standard just felt so high because there are very few fullbacks I think who could cope with Vinicius the way Kyle Walker did, and it looked like he was really, really relishing it.
And at the end of the game, they high-fived each other, which was really nice.
There was a moment earlier as well where they kind of looked at each other knowingly, like sort of that Spider-Man meme.
Hello there. If you've enjoyed this video, why not subscribe to this channel? The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.